valuable. Yeah.
All right. So I hope we are all going to dinner tonight, walking dinner, and you're going to be chased after dinner. So
Yes.
Thanks so much for this presentation.
All right. Thank you.
So our second presentation is by Laura Govers from the University of Groningen. Do you have slides or? They should be here then already. All right, and Laura is going to speak on temporal consciousness in non-human animals.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am indeed going to talk about temporal consciousness in non-human animals, and from now on I will call them animals because it's easier. So yeah, a quote from Bergson says, "When a dog welcomes his master, barking and wagging his tail, he certainly recognizes him, but does this recognition imply the identification of a past image? The past does not interest the animal enough to detach it from the fascinating present, to call up the past in the form of an image. We must be able to withdraw ourselves from the action of the moment. We must have the power to value the useless. We must have the will to dream. Man alone is capable of such an effort." I thought that was a really interesting quote because he emphasizes the importance of detaching from the present. And yeah, as such, I was wondering, are animals consciously aware of their own temporal existence? Or can their sensitivity to past events, so their behavior based on past events, be explained by much simpler mechanisms that require no such consciousness of the past? So in other words, can non-human animals understand the passage of time? So yeah, there's an experiment from Clayton and Dickinson with scrub jays, where the scrub jays were allowed to hide both worms and peanuts. Worms being way more delicious to them than the peanuts, and they hid both of them. However, the worms they decay a lot faster than the peanuts. So after some time, I don't know exactly how long, they were allowed back in the room without knowing where, without any visual cues of where they were. They should have remembered where the worms were and the peanuts. They get the option to choose either the peanuts or the worms, and they go straight for the peanuts after, because they know, that is the conclusion they draw from it, because they know that the worms have decayed and the peanuts have not. If they come back after a short time, they go to the waxworms. If they come back after a long period, they go straight to the peanuts. And this should, is according to them, prove that the jay has some consciousness of time, or at least they can understand temporal processes. So the question that was raised by some of the opponents of temporal consciousness in non-human animals is whether such behavior can be explained by a simpler mechanism than actual consciousness. And suddenly, McCormack and Hurl, they have a model, and they explain how this behavior of the scrub jay, can be explained by a mechanism, what they call the temporal updating system, where the animal has a model of the world, it's constantly modeling the world, and it updates the world based on external cues in the present. However, it may be sensitive to the past, but its behavior is context bound. So it does not actually have the capacity. It has the capacity to track regularities and some minimal form of flexibility. However, it has no true experience of the past, they argue, because it is not able to take the event and separate it from the context and take it to be something in itself that can be placed on some objective timeline. So it is not able to decouple it from the context and save it as a memory in the form of a representation in the head. This is some form of metacognition that allows for mental time travel. So it allows the animal to reconstruct the past and re-experience it. And this is what we haven't found in animals yet so far. What the humans can do is they can recall events from the past. They can decouple the events, take it as itself, as a moment in time, and save it as a mental representation, and then later come back to it. And place it as on an objective timeline. So the information is then saved as a unconstrained mental representation in the head in humans. However, I have two questions regarding this paper from Laura Govers, in particular, and one is whether temporal consciousness truly requires such decoupling from the context. Like, what does it even mean? And can experienced events can they truly become decoupled from their context? Can they be separated from biological constraints at all? And this is important, at least for studying animal temporal consciousness, because there's a dichotomy between, on the one hand, the animal's ability to indeed respond to events from the past, but without actually being conscious of what happens, on the one hand, and on the other hand, the human being who can somehow objectify events into separate things as two separate scales, and whereas it is not exactly clear to what degree they are in line with each other, to what degree they are truly that different, or at least not me. That's what I would like to find out. So how tenable is this dichotomy? From a phenomenological point of view, no object presents itself without relating to the perceived subject. Perceived information takes the form of meaningful relationships with the environment. So information is always the information that an animal human receives is always information based on the cues that are presented by the environment and the own structure of the animal, and as such, the animal has Merleau-Ponty has a concept of the body schema, which stands for which could be seen as like a register of experiences, where experiences from the past are somehow saved within the structure of an animal in a non-representational way. So it is a structure that develops through time and constantly restructures itself based on certain principles that it has to self-sustain. So a body, an animal, needs, for example, needs to behave flexibly in order to self-sustain. So in a very simple example, this could mean you hear a predator coming and you know that's dangerous, so you go to a different place where you hide or whatever. You change your behavior according to ways that are self-sustaining. And according to Merleau-Ponty, the information from the environment has the form of things you can do with it, like the objects that are presented to the animal or the human have the form of things you can do with it. For example, for the jay, this could be like the waxworm is not some object that it perceives with some stimuli that it passively perceives without meaning, and then in the end it's given meaning by interpreting. Waxworm, however, what happens is that this waxworm is by itself perceived as something with an immediate meaning. In this case, like it could be something to help with hunger or a gift for a partner. It has an immediate meaning, which need not necessarily be fully conscious of. So it is a meaningful engagement with the environment, and as such, this meaning, these objects are presented to the animal as meaningful for sustaining their own structure or developing the structure, and they do so in a dynamical way because of environmental change. They need to be able to dynamically respond to them. More importantly, their behavior is highly flexible. And the difference with Girl and McCormack is that for her and McCormack, the worm is perceived passively, and then the image of the worm is saved as a memory, as a mental representation within the head, while for Merleau-Ponty, it is always related to the environment itself. So in that sense, animals, or in that sense, it cannot be decoupled from events cannot be decoupled from their context, the environment that the animals live in. And And where Hurl and McCormick say that animals merely track the regularities in their environment. For Merleau-Ponty, he shows how flexibility is like a really important aspect of animal life. However, without forming objective thoughts per se. This could this ability of animals to use their experience to restructure themselves, to use their experience to anticipate future situations in the future, could, in a very minimal sense, be considered as consciousness of time. However, in a non-declarative way, not in a way of a knowledge, I know that, a knowledge of, so not in a way of I know that I am a temporal being, but rather in a practical way of knowing what to do. And it's a knowledge that is in the structure. It is a knowledge of knowing how to engage with the environment effectively. This should be, at least I would argue, enough to argue that animals are not cognitively stuck in the present as Hurl and McCormick say they are. However, full consciousness and an understanding of time, knowing that you are a temporal being requires more. What about explicit memories, which we as humans have? We have memories of things with certain truth values. We can have memories in form of episodes, like certain events that are played in heads. Like I remember eating a sandwich this morning. I can visualize it. What about the jays, the scrub jays in the experiment? Because they come back to the room, they have no visual cues as to where they should look and which, or anything that indicates the decay of the worms or anything like that. So how do they know? How do they keep this? How do they have this information? Where do they store it? Where does it come from? Do you then rely on internally stored content? Because they certainly know that they know that they understand the concept of decay. So somehow they must have it internally stored, one could argue. However, so this leads McCormick and Hurl and McCormick to argue that, to conclude that it does rely on internally stored content, on memories that are saved in the brain as a sort of image of what happened in the past, as episodic memory. However, one could, from a phenomenological point of view, one could say that that something that appears, which appears unconstrained, does not mean that it actually is constrained. It is not. It is even a memory in the form of a episodic memory is always related to its perceptual environment. So does it really break free from the context-bound situation and persist as information with representation and context, or in line with the theory of Merleau-Ponty, where information is structural and always something that refers to body within the environment. Is this recalling of the past a sort of does it have a creative aspect in it, in the sense that it is that one is reconstructing the past somehow? Is is recalling the past somehow a matter of using the perceptual cues from the environment in the present and your own bodily structure to recall the past in a way in the same sense as other perception, also in the way of in the light of what I in the light of the present. Do I remember? When I look back at the information, when I look back at or try to remember what I did this morning, like I ate a sandwich. I always do so from the perspective of the now, and in that sense, it is not just the past moving on to the future, being saved and stored for future reference, but it is my presence actually determining the past, not in a, or at least my view of what happened, because I am recalling this memory with a certain purpose, namely to use it as an example here. So the way we look at our past is always colored by our current situation, the things we perceive. It is not breaking free from ties. It is not decoupling from the context of the back then. It is a structure in development, creating new phenomena.
If you want to have some Q&A time, then
I'll go really fast.
then
Yeah.
you should work to the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm almost finished. So my point here with all the things I just said is not necessarily to say that animals are similar as humans, of course. Of course, we have a capacity to turn events into objects, in the sense that we do have this, we do decouple them, we do create theories about them, and we have relativity theory and stuff like that. We have objective time. However, it's not necessarily clear, and it's highly unlikely that animals have this. So in that sense, I'm not trying to say animals are like us or we are like them. My main point of this story is that there is at least a continuity that should be considered in research of temporal consciousness, because with the strong dichotomy that Earl McCormack proposed, with on the one hand the animal is deprived of any navigating through the past or any understanding of time, and on the other hand the human who's able to objectify time and therefore has a consciousness of time. I mean, I think there is at least good reason to have a third, well, not a third category, but a full continuity between those two, where there are for the in-between cases where we can research, at least in more detail, to which degree and which time, which type of consciousness, temporal consciousness, animals may or may not have. So, and I think the phenomenological approach is able to do that. And I think the representational view has problems with doing so, or at least if it presents memories as things that are decoupled from the context that they are formed in. Yeah, does anyone have questions?
Okay, thanks very much. Are there questions? Yes, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure if I got it out. So if you say there, you present this view of like the community, like spectrum, but would you say that these two types of representation are there's still some kind of difference in kind, or is it just a matter of like complexity?
Yeah, no matter of complexity, I think that it is at least the full conscious experience of past events are not something different in kind from more simpler experiences of the past. I think there is continuity in between. There's a gradual difference, and that's a matter of complexity.
Okay. Right. So, okay. So, like in a way, if an animal takes enough clues from the environment, I guess like at some point you get to this like idea of like this the representation of an experience rather than.
I don't think representations are a good model for a good way to describe such experiences at all, because representations are yeah, they are located, they are images of something that happened in the past, as if like a photograph was taken, or at least somehow it's saved in my brain, and that I recall this exact same picture. Well, this I think is not possible, nor in humans nor in animals. So I think representation is not a good view at all, because it's always connected with perception. And then I forgot the rest of your question.
No, I mean that was yeah, that was kind of it. Was that okay? Yeah. So
Are there any other questions?
yeah.
No. So perhaps I may ask a question. So to me, your question looks like an empirical question. Is there a time consciousness in non-human animals? And then you go to Merleau-Ponty to find an answer. It seems to me that for answering empirical questions, it is a bit, it's quite something to turn to a philosopher to find the answer, unless the philosopher has done empirical research.
I don't think it is just merely an empirical research which can give the answer. Of course, I think this is definitely what the empirical research is crucial. However, it is experiments like the one with the scrap jay that have led to various conclusions, and it's not a matter of just having these empirical experiments, but also how do we interpret them. And I think in that sense, Merleau-Ponty can be important for, I think this is crucial.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah.